was a call that no family ever wants to get. Somebody very frantic and panicked on the other side of the line saying that my brother had been in a horrific accident. We took the case, we put it into suit. The maximum offer we ever got was $5,000. I know what happens is a lot of people get very busy where they don't want to deal with certain clients. That is not the approach for longevity. I think lawyers forget it. I think doctors forget it sometimes that don't have great bedside manners. Behind every issue is a real human being that's struggling and suffering. They're not going to want to talk to a bot about something so personal, right? As attorneys, we're therapists, we're friends, we're legal advocates. Those are things that you're not going to get out of an AI.
This is The Litigator's Edge, the podcast where smart strategy, practical innovation, and real-world experience come together to move litigation forward. Each week, we sit down with attorneys, legal tech leaders, and trusted advisors who are rethinking how great legal work gets done. You'll hear how law firms are building a competitive advantage. These conversations are grounded, insightful, and designed to help you refine how you work and how you win. Here is your host, Aniket Sawant.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of The Litigator's Edge, the podcast where innovative attorneys reveal the strategies that have transformed their legal practice. My name is Aniket Sawant, and I'm co-founder and CEO of Threadio. My guest today is founder and CEO of a nationally recognized personal injury law firm with locations in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. He's the author of the Injury Handbook, From Accident to Compensation, and host of the podcast, Let's Get Personal. Our guest has developed multiple innovations for use within personal injury law and has been consistently recognized for his excellence. Massachusetts super lawyer from 2020 to 2025, one of the top 25 motor vehicle trial lawyers nationally in 2023, and most recently, best car accident lawyer by expertise.com for 2025. Most fascinating for me personally is how he transformed a personal tragedy into professional purpose, which we'll get into. It's my pleasure to welcome Chris DiBella to the podcast. Welcome, Chris, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Aniket. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really excited to get into some of the content that we're going to talk about today.
Fantastic. As you know, Chris, one of the things I like to start with is I like to ask each of our guests to either share a fun fact about themselves or a cringe joke, or both. Which will it be for you, and what is it?
I'm going to give you a little fun fact, and especially you being on the West Coast and I'm in the Northeast, I think it'll be interesting. Every time I go out to one of our legal conferences and I meet people from all over the country, they always find it interesting. So I have two boys that play hockey. One's now in college and one's in high school. And one of the things I've been doing in my spare time, it's kind of like being a greenskeeper, but up in the Northeast, I have what's called an outdoor rink. And we literally put out almost a regulation size hockey rink. We flood an area, we put in lines, hockey nets, and we can skate 10, 15 kids out there. It's a labor of love. We go out, we have a homemade Zamboni, and we have to, something I wouldn't expect you would have much exposure to in California.
No.
Here in Massachusetts, you can almost find them in every backyard.
That's awesome. I think the rink is cool, but the homemade Zamboni sounds interesting. I think we need to have a separate conversation just around that. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that, Chris. As you know, I consider every attorney who makes the time to come onto this podcast a superhero. And every superhero has an origin story, and I think yours is particularly fascinating. What is it, and can you please share it with our audience?
Yeah, I'm happy to. It's funny, as we get older, you forget a lot of things or memories get fuzzy. But, this memory in particular sticks in my head. It's in 1080p, right? It's crystal clear. And I remember the day what the kitchen in my old house looked like when the phone rang on the wall, the old rotary phone. And I ran to pick it up. It was my birthday, so I was getting some calls that day. And it was about 10 years old. And it was a call that no family ever wants to get. It was somebody very frantic and panicked on the other side of the line saying that my brother had been in a horrific accident. He was riding his bike downtown from where I lived, and a car had hit him. So I remember vividly, my father was in the kitchen as well. I threw the phone to my father. He had jumped on and then bolted out the door to get downtown. And, my next vivid memory was just getting to the hospital. Again, it's my birthday, and walking into that hospital room and seeing my brother hooked up to all these lines and monitors. And it's something that has stuck with me. It sticks with me with every case that I take on. Very vividly and firsthand what my clients go through, what it's like to get people calling about outstanding medical bills and debt collectors calling and insurance companies calling to try and settle something without even knowing what the facts were, just because they want to get rid of the case for pennies on the dollar. And I really remember, what my parents had to go through with a young child that was injured to that capacity. So it really is something that has shaped my whole life. It shaped kind of what I went into in my profession and how I approach my practice.
Wow, that's a compelling story. Was your brother okay at the end of it all? I'm sure it was an ordeal, but
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely got some, permanency and scarring. He's definitely, thankfully okay and with us today, but, he definitely has some scars that are still with him, unfortunately.
absolutely. So that must have been quite the formative experience. Can you talk about how you went from that experience, obviously as a child, and the journey you took from there to where you are today professionally? I know you have both a JD and an MBA, which gives you an interesting perspective from not only the legal standpoint, but also from a business standpoint, business of law standpoint. Can you maybe walk us through the journey from that formative moment to where you are today professionally?
Yeah, absolutely. I came from a very blue collar working class family. My father worked in construction. He was an operating engineer. My grandfather was a bricklayer and immigrated to this country. And, one of the things that I've always seen, my father would come home injured. He worked under a lot of difficult conditions. And that's something that's spanned my whole youth. And, once I got into college, my father was somebody, even though he's very blue collar, he always pushed me at wanting to go into the legal world. He kind of saw the impact from some of his early experiences, what a lawyer could have and how they could help working class families. And, he is somebody that, not having even gone to college himself, he came home one day with a 400-page tort textbook that I was way too young to understand any of it, but I still remember that. And that's something that he very much wanted me to go into the practice of law. He pushed me in that direction as well. So I do owe a bunch of gratitude to him for pushing me in that direction. And it only continued to evolve. Once I got into law school, I started helping unemployment issues, again, similar with people that had been injured or taken advantage of by their employer or injured at work. Then I eventually got into the district attorney's office where I gained a lot of great litigation experience, introduction into the court system. But there's kind of been an underlying theme of I've always gravitated towards the cases that you helped people and that I felt more fulfilled, a sense of purpose in a way that I didn't in other areas of law that I got into early on. And the MBA, just jumping decades forward, has really helped me as when I'm trying to scale my business. Some of those things that I've learned early on in business school have really come in to the forefront and been very pivotal in understanding clients and why it's so important to focus on the client, every aspect of the case, and putting the client first. And how do we do that? And how do we utilize technology to do it? And I've been grateful that I've really been able to use both degrees in running and growing the practice over the years.
That's fantastic. Well, first of all, kudos to your dad for having the foresight to see in you, what obviously he did, and the fact that you are here is a testament to his foresight and obviously to your efforts. So kudos to. I think there's a couple of interesting threads to pull at with the business of law side, and we'll come to that in a second, Chris. What are some interesting cases that really stood out to you in your career? Obviously, your formative moment was the tragic accident with your brother, but when you took on cases, what are some ones that really made an impact on you and maybe had a significant positive impact on the client that you represented?
It's hard to pick a few, but there are definitely some that stand out, and for a variety of different reasons. But I remember a single mom coming into the office. Her son was suffering with some issues that she thought was attributed to some lead paint exposure in the house. She wasn't getting anywhere. She certainly engaged the city. There was some testing done, but it was very hard to correlate the lead exposure to the injuries and the developmental delays that he was experiencing. And it was, it's tough because she was also struggling to get her very young son the help he needed because nobody was listening. Nobody wanted to take the case, and we are very driven in this office by empathy. And that's very clear for anyone that calls the office, and my staff, I'm very grateful, leads with empathy. And very quickly upon meeting mom and their son, we learned that we had to take the case. And we took the case, we put it into suit, and the maximum offer we ever got was $5,000. And it was just, it wasn't we weren't going to stand for that. There was some issues where assets were trying to be hidden and just a lot of uphill battles. But at the end of the day, where we secured substantial sum for this family, it really touched me because mom, more than anything else, it wasn't about the big dollar that she got. It was what she could do with that she had already researched throughout the country, the best places to go for the symptoms that her son was experiencing and how to treat it. And knowing that we as an office changed the path of that child's life and allowing them to now have the resources to pursue the treatment that he needed and would otherwise not get was really heartwarming. And, we still get cards from some of these clients, or they pop in to say hello. And to me, that's worth more than any amount of money we could ever make on a case.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, the fact that you're directly having an impact in changing this person's life and people's lives on almost a daily basis, I'm sure that's a matter of great pride for you. So congratulations.
And not to bog you down with another one, but it's funny. I was talking with my paralegal, and we were talking about a case. We had somebody walk in last week, and the case was a week before the statute of limitations. And for whatever reason, the firm that she had previously had discharged them 6 months ago. And they have spent the last 6 months trying to find somebody. And nobody took it. Nobody wanted to, because they knew it was so close to the statute of limitations. They were going to have to settle it very quickly or put it in litigation. They also didn't want to go into deep litigation over the case. So now we're like, what do we do? We have a week. And as you know, that it's very hard to do anything in months or a year, let alone a week. But again, just an amazing family, somebody that you wanted to help. Didn't know that we would actually even make any money on it because of how many hours we'd have to put in very quickly, all hands on deck in the office. And with so many of the resources we now have available through technology and partnerships, we literally, and it was a family of 4, there's 4 cases. And we actually were able to get everybody on board, to the insurance companies, to the lien holders, to the medical providers, and literally get this thing done yesterday, which was amazing. I applaud, but we kind of like taking on those difficult cases, the cases that nobody else wants, because those clients need help also. And I could see the desperation in both of their faces when they came, and there's 2 kids involved. And, to me, and it has nothing to do about what we made on it. It was very much just getting them some sense of justice that they really were not going to have anywhere else. And that's why we do this.
That's fantastic. I mean, to me, it demonstrates not only, client commitment, because turning this around in a week, I'm assuming is no joke, but also a deep expertise and experience, well of expertise and experience that you can bring to bear to actually make this happen. That's, I think, an interesting segue into my next question, which is, you literally wrote the book on injury. So your book is titled The Injury Handbook from an Accident to Compensation. And I'm sure, a lot of the topics that you talk about in that book probably were born to bear or you brought them to bear rather in this, in this case and in all the cases that you take on. Can you talk a little bit about the book, what it contains, who it's for?
Yeah, happy to do that. We found a hole in the process throughout many clients, just conversations that, they either coming from attorneys and really had no idea where their case was at or where it was going, or even clients that were with us early on and really had a lot of questions, not just about where we were in the next phase, but what does the whole process look like? And obviously, having gone through it myself, my family, and knowing the anxiety that goes through not just wanting to know the answer to the current questions about your case, but about everything. And so we put this book together that really takes you from the inception of an accident. And that's really important these days, as you know, Aniket. So when you get into an accident, pictures and video, everyone's walking around with a high definition camera and video recorder in their pocket. And so to capture that, right, because a lot of times evidence disappears very quickly, it gets destroyed, it's not kept well. So making sure that people know it's very important to capture any evidence that they do in real time as quickly as they can. And people are doing that. And we take them from that stage and helpful tips and things that we can impart on them that will help maximize their case down the road. We also teach them, and we in our welcome package that we send to clients, we send not only the book, but we send a journal. And I'm a little bit old school. We do have a smartphone app as well that you can track this stuff. But, I tell all my clients, if this case is going on 6 months or 2 years, if you're going to try and recreate what you did in that first month, where you had to be relying upon a family member to shower, you had sleepless nights, you had, severe headaches, you were unable to go to work. Some of these things you can source and try and piece together, but a lot of it you just forget. So we like to allow either electronically through a smartphone app or an old school journal to have people journaling consistently throughout the process. We also take them through every phase of the personal injury process. So from, them treating, us gathering the appropriate medical records and bills, dealing with the insurance company, learning about what the policies are, what the exceptions to the policies might be, what the demand process looks like, what the negotiation process looks like, and if none of that works, what the litigation process looks like. We anticipate one of the biggest things that we get to is, all right, we've gotten our maximum offer from the insurance company, and we may not be happy with it. They're not happy with it. What does the whole next phase look like? And that's an important part, because I think clients underestimate. They just say, I don't like the number, let's go get more, but they don't realize that a bit more of an active participant in that phase. And between attending depositions and producing discovery and preparing for trial, I love to demystify it, explain it in layman's terms, let them understand every phase and why we're doing it, and so that they can also know where we're at. Because a lot of times, the clients, they talk to you a lot up front, they talk to you a lot before it ends, but in the middle, I feel like in some firms, clients can get lost. And that's why we focus on 30-day check-ins, and we have a lot of different avenues to stay in touch with the clients. But this book is also something that they can keep with them throughout the whole process, so that our voice is there anytime they have a question. We have a lot of frequently asked questions in that book about each phase. We also have a lot of FAQs in video format on our website, in our client portal. But it's really meant to be a handbook so that they know where they're at, they know what we're doing, and they also know why we're doing it. And finally, I'll leave you with this, that one of the most underserved portions of the attorney experience, but is in my book, is what does post-attorney experience look like? What are they left with? A lot of clients are left with, they're depressed, they can't do the same activities they used to. There's a lot of emotional distress. They might have limited range of motion, and it goes through different resources that are available to them, different support groups, knowing that they're not alone and knowing that we're still here even post suit. So we try to address all different factors and phases of the case from start to finish and after.
Thank you for sharing that, Chris. That sounds pretty comprehensive, almost a life guide of sorts, because it's not just to the outside world, it might be a particular incident or an event that happened, and maybe we might see a headline in the news or even a sidebar in the news. But for that individual, it's life changing, and providing a guide to help them navigate their changed life, I would assume is actually quite valuable. So thank you for sharing that. Let's now switch gears a little bit from the work that you do in terms of helping clients and providing them with the resources that you do, to the business of law, as we discussed earlier, right? So personal injury is quite a competitive space, and there's many attorneys that prospective client can choose from. If I'm in a position where I need a high quality lawyer to help represent me and provide me with the advocacy that I need, what should I be looking for? That's the first part of my question. And the second part is sort of more business related, which is, how do you differentiate yourself from other personal injury lawyers who may also, on the face of it, be able to offer those same services and may even use similar language to advertise their services?
That's a great question. And we do speak at various places, and I get that one maybe most often. And it is a tough time for a client to really differentiate and for them to understand, because they're just seeing something online, so the best thing is a referral. One of the things that we focus on is getting out a lot of client testimonials, letting them speak for us more than we can, so that there's a lot of trusted former clients. We have over 500 five-star reviews online. We want them to hear from clients that have worked with us directly, not just from our marketing campaign. So I think it's very important for them to to do their due diligence, which I think a lot of people are doing these days because they have a lot more resources available to them. And don't be afraid to ask tough questions to the attorneys. There's a lot of attorneys, a lot of great attorneys, but a lot of them dabble in personal injury. A lot of them, this is not their main area of law. And, I think by doing that, there is a bit of a disservice sometimes that can be to the client in terms of, their awareness of current case law, different trends in litigation, and different awareness of different tools that are available in the space. I wouldn't be afraid to ask about that. There's a couple things that we feel differentiate ourselves. And one of those is the fact that we get a lot of calls from clients that have left other firms. And it seems like lawyering 101, but getting back to your clients. It literally, I think I've heard this as early as law school. I know the bar associations preach it, but I know what happens is a lot of people get very busy or they don't want to deal with certain clients. That is not the approach for longevity. And you need to get back to your clients. We have a protocol in our office that we get back to everybody same day, even if it's just to say, let's set up a time for you to talk to one of the attorneys tomorrow. But we want to make sure we get back to them. And there's so many different ways that you can get back to them. And another thing that I would say differentiates us is the way we've embraced technology, but we've done it in a way to enhance the client experience. So as I indicated earlier, we have a smartphone app for both iPhones and Androids so that people can literally find out closest hospitals, get Uber rides, take pictures, communicate with us, make appointments, track out-of-pocket expenses, lost wages. It's an area that they can do that in real time in the palm of their hand. We also have a client portal through our case management system that it's almost equivalent to like the Domino's tracker, right? You want to see where your pizza is. It's the same thing. You can see where your case is. And we're continuing to build that out daily because what we do is we like to have a lot of frequently asked questions there for each phase. We have video links that you can hear directly from one of the staff talking to you about what's going on in this phase. So I think that's very important. And just the use of, we've really, really embraced technology just to be more efficient in how we communicate and respond regularly with the clients, because it's, at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
I was looking up some of the innovations that you've sort of released, and one of them is the Instant Case Evaluator. Is that the app that you were mentioning, the pizza tracker equivalent?
Yeah. So no, the app is more like when you're a client and you're tracking everything throughout the case. The Instant Case Evaluator are for those that are really trying to ask, who should I hire and do I really even have a case? So you can go right on our website, which you can do from a mobile device or from a desktop, but that will help walk you through some of the pivotal questions depending on the type of injury that you sustained in evaluating, do you have a case? And it has an online pain chart there, so you can also identify where on the body you've suffered an injury, and all of that gets immediately forwarded to us. And then we connect based on all of that information to hopefully help you on the case if we've decided there is one.
We'll come to a couple more technology-related questions in a second, but I wanted to also talk about one other thing that I was looking up, which is that we talk about innovations, and often innovations relate to technology, but they don't always have to. In your case, I see a business model innovation called the DiBella Difference Guarantee, so like a 30-day free trial of your services. I personally have not heard of anything like that. I think it's tremendous value. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What gave you the confidence to offer that? And what does it signal about your commitment to client satisfaction?
So above all else, we are committed to the clients. And if they're not happy, we don't, we want to make sure they're happy and thriving and everything is addressed for them going through what we all know is, this is not like doing other areas of law. This is, you're getting people at their most difficult times. And they have so many stresses. When somebody calls the office, it's not just about an injury that they themselves or a family member is going through. It's about what's the financial exposure if they can't go back to work, who's going to pay these medical bills, and kind of getting those answers for them as quickly as possible is very important. So to your earlier point is there's so much out there. There's so many people that, maybe embellish some of their representations. We want to cut through all that and just say, listen, we understand making the leap and hiring somebody is not easy. To some degree, there always has to be a level of trust that's built up, which we try to build in that initial phone call. But we want to prove it to them. We want to take those first 30 days to say, when you call us, you're going to hear back. you're going to experience that. I can say it, but it's different for you to experience it when you actually call the office. You want to talk to an attorney, not just be passed to a paralegal every time. You're going to get one. You'll see that when you do it in the first 30 days. They're also going to get a chance to see how our systems work. We have dedicated phone numbers and emails for every file. So when they send a text, a picture, an email, it all goes directly into their file. We have shared files where they can upload and download things directly from their client portal. So I really want them to get exposed to my staff. I want them to get exposed to our systems and how we treat our clients. And we're virtually undefeated with people that start with us. They don't leave.
That's fantastic. Coming back to technology now. So we spoke about, or you mentioned it a couple of times during our conversation here, and you're clearly a technology pioneer in the space with the app, with the instant case evaluator, with the client portal. But let's talk about the new thing in town, which is AI. So it's everywhere, and there people have all sorts of opinions about it. But in the specific context, or from where you sit, how do you see AI in general impacting the future of personal injury law? Is it more back office efficiency, or is it playing more of a significant role in strategy, case strategy, negotiations, client communication? What's your take on all of it?
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic. I've spoken at length about it at law schools and other podcasts. I feel like we were kind of on the forefront for this. We're very involved in staying up on all the recent trends. I'm in a law firm growth conference that I attend quarterly. And before AI was even mainstream, I was learning about the impact. And I came back lit on fire, and my staff can remember the exact day. I was so excited about what this could do for the efficiencies in the office, for the client experience. And initially, there was a lot of resistance. I had a lot of staff saying, well, that's just going to replace me, or, I feel like it's cheating. And that was some time ago. And, one of the lines I heard early on is that you're not going to be replaced by AI, but you're going to be replaced by somebody that embraces AI. And I think that's very true. And this is an area that we stay on top of. It is changing daily, monthly, rapidly. And we use AI in ways that have really revolutionized our practice. It allows us to get immediate recall of voluminous documents and cross-referencing things and finding inconsistencies and, really understanding what a massive data dump, to be able to dissect it, categorize it, and understand it on a level and scale in a short period of time that we could never do is life-changing. But the big thing that we also are striving as attorneys to focus on is we have to identify the things that AI can replace. And that's going to be this experience, right? Whether it's over Zoom or in person, they're not going to want to talk to a bot about something so personal, right? When as attorneys, we're therapists, we're friends, we're legal advocates. Those are things that you're not going to get out of an AI. Now, AI can help with a lot of efficiencies, but, they want an attorney on the phone. They want a paralegal on the phone. They want a human, the front-facing piece of the practice of law is always going to remain, human to human, face to face. And we've just tried to really utilize AI to create a better experience for clients and to enhance inefficiencies and redundancies within our practice.
That's amazing. What are some specific areas where it's really helped? You mentioned data dumps and things like that. Can you talk a little bit more specifically about some of the tools you use or the use cases within your broader practice?
Sure. I mean, from analysis of legal documents, so there's a lot of different AI tools now through a lot of different vendors. There's some through LexisNexis and Westlaw, which every lawyer knows is kind of the comprehensive legal directory of all statutes and laws and cases. And, you're able to, upload documents and see, what are weaknesses in the motions that have been filed by the other side. What case law directly opposes that. And you're doing all of this, on the click of a keyboard. You're not spending as many hours in legal research that you used to. Now, here's the pitfall, right? The pitfall is so many people are using the wrong AI apps, or they're using them inappropriately. I don't know if you've seen it, but I've seen countless articles of attorneys and firms getting caught up in these cases. They're creating fake cases when they're back to the court. And, certain AI, if it's not embedded in your system or in a system like Lexis or Westlaw, they hallucinate, they make up cases. And, we as lawyers have an obligation. You can't just set it and forget it. You cannot fact check some of these things. They may read well, but you actually have to dive into some of these cases, read some of the case law, and make sure that it ties appropriately. We are probably switching more to a bit of editors rather than drafters or creators of content in the legal space, but that the editing and reviewing is a vital space, a vital part that attorneys are missing right now or shortcutting. And there's people getting sanctioned, and there's certain generic AI platforms that will spit out anything you want, and they write beautifully. It sounds great, it's very compelling, but it's not legally accurate. So you need to make sure that you're using the proper tools that are giving you the proper citations, and you're following up on those as well.
That makes a lot of sense. Switching gears a little bit to, again, taking a step back a little bit and looking at some of the other activities that you also pursue. So you have the handbook that you wrote, but you also have a podcast. So which is kind of a little bit meta in this context. But what do you talk about in your podcast? What's the subject matter? And then what has the podcast taught you about storytelling, and how does it interplay? What's the interplay between what you do with the podcast and the skills that you bring to bear, say, for advocating for a client in a jury trial or otherwise?
Probably inherently there's some overlap from my legal skills to it, but I really attacked it initially. It's called Let's Get Personal, and we've had some people that I'm in awe of in terms of their successes, and I love a great story of how somebody's rags to riches, and we have some. So it's really about, let's get personal on the journey that someone's taken to get to where they have gotten in life. And, pulling back that curtain, because we see so many things online, we always see the end product. And people make everything athletes and, doctors and, Nobel Peace Prize winners. They don't make it look easy. They got there. They must have always been there. Their family must have been brilliant. They had opportunities that I would have never gotten. Then when you see some of these people that have achieved great things in their life, and you really see some of the struggles they went through, some of the unique pathways that they took that, I don't think a lot of people are thinking about. I talked to a CEO that talked about cold calling places for a job. I don't know that people would do something like that today, or even be so brazen, and being the ability to take on rejection and move forward and not let that derail you. But I really love the creative aspect of the podcast and learning about people, learning about new topics. So that's been something that has been surprisingly enjoyable from my perspective, because we do have ones that we do talk to different medical professionals, and how, that does help clients. And some of them are just purely inspirational, and where people can learn something new about different fields and different journeys and different things that people did to achieve success in their life.
That's incredible. So is the focus area primarily personal injury, or is it broader, across law or legal tech, or what is the scope?
We focus on the person. So it's not not all of them are directly legal related. Some of them are, but we've talked to motorcycle clubs. We've talked to chiropractors. We've talked to the president of motorcycle associations. Like I said, we've talked to celebrities. We've talked to CEOs. So it does span quite a bit. It's really just initially, and I'm sure it will continue to evolve, because we do want to get pretty pointed on some more material that affects our clients directly. But we jumped off by attacking really inspiring people and how they've made their pathway in life.
It's clear that you're a committed attorney and client advocate, and you have you have this venture in terms of the podcast and then the book. I also know that you're committed to your community. Can you talk a little bit about some of your engagement with the community and what you've done in that regard?
I'd love to, because it's also one of probably mine and my staff's favorite thing to do. We are out in the community constantly. We must have had an event every weekend this summer where we were attending events to help dogs, to youth in crisis, to the Boys and Girls Club, to the homeless. It's the whole reason why we're here, right? I mean, giving back, helping people. You and I were very fortunate in life, and if we're not paying it forward, what example are we setting? And I'm very fortunate. My father, again, not coming from a lot, he was very involved in a nonprofit helping people suffering with cancer, and he built all of the altar and surrounding furniture and material for my church when I grew up. And, that's kind of just something that's always been embedded in me, and we try to pass that along to my children. But it's something that we've done it for a long time. We do a scholarship every year. I've learned that the staff love it. We love doing it around the holidays. We love seeing the joy. There's really no feeling you get like providing something for someone in need. And I think that we've all learned that, and we strive to do it as much as we can. So we have a good deeds program where people can go on our website, and we've had people give recommendations of somebody that he's in a homeless shelter and needs a new fridge. Somebody's struggling to pay their heating bill at home. Somebody's struggling with some health insurance bills. So we solicit things from people, and it's out on the web, and they report back to us, and we try to fulfill as many of those things as we can. It really has been a deeply personal and fulfilling experience for both myself and the staff. And that's something we'll do as long as I'm in practice.
That's amazing. And it's so nice to see. I think it speaks to the quality of your staff as well, that, it's so nice to have a staff or team that is so aligned in terms of values with you. It just I'm sure it makes everything just go better, especially, in your business and beyond. So that's fantastic. This has been a great conversation. Just a couple of quick other points that I wanted to bring up. One is, you mentioned rather that you're not only interested in the practice of law, but also the business of law. And so if I'm a younger entrepreneurial or earlier career lawyer, and if I'm a little bit entrepreneurial in nature, what is your number one piece of advice to me or someone like me for building not just a law practice, but a successful and impactful law business?
That's a great question. And it's one that, I remember coming out of law school. I worked for a big corporation initially before I jumped out on my own. And when I did, it was scary. It was scary because I was like, well, even just the basics. How am I going to pay for a printer, a phone bill, even a one office room where I'm responsible for that every month, and there's no guarantee that the phone's going to ring. So I think being true to yourself, finding your passion, because, and it's probably overused and people say it all the time, but genuinely when you find something you like doing, it doesn't feel like work, and people realize that. I think you also need to realize, and so important to us that we kind of made it our tagline, which is every case is personal. But I think lawyers forget it. I think doctors forget it sometimes, that don't have great bedside manners. Behind every issue is a real human being that's struggling and suffering. And again, I can't take all the credit, but I'll pass by staff's offices and I will hear a paralegal doing an intake for an extra 45 minutes. They're just talking to this person. They're becoming friends. They're learning about their pets, and they'll say, hey, can we throw in some dog treats into the welcome box? Because they're listening, they're learning. These are not just cases, they're people. And I think the more you lead with that, the more successful you will be. And, the other thing I will say is you need to embrace, which not everybody does, and it comes with time. I didn't do it immediately, but you have to embrace technology and you have to embrace systems, because if you don't know different metrics in your office, if you're not providing, the best user experience for your clients and being able to measure that and being able to hold people accountable to it, then it's very easy to do one case super well and have a great experience. The client loves you and leaves a great review. It's very hard to do it 1,000 times, 10,000 times, where you're doing it over and over, where you have the systems in place where everybody knows what's expected, in terms of getting back to clients, in terms of, making their experience as meaningful as possible. So building in those systems, it makes sense to invest in the right people and the right systems that really enhance the user experience.
I wanted to yield the floor to you, Chris. It's been a wonderful conversation. I hear you have an offer for our listeners, maybe with regards to your book. So I just wanted to, let you have a minute to share that and share how our guests can get a hold of you.
Yeah, well, thank you again so much for having me. This has been wonderful. I always love, talking about the law. It's something I'm very passionate about, something I love. Yeah, what we wanted to offer to any viewers of your podcast that download this, that view it, is, as you can see behind me, we have the Injury Handbook. That is something that we have in hard copy here. We also have it available in PDF. It's also on the Amazon store, but for your listeners, anybody that wants to reach out to us, you can reach out at contact@DiBellaLawOffice.com, and we will get you a free copy of the book, and happy to answer any questions that you have about anything related to a case.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Chris. This has been a wonderful conversation. I appreciate your time and your commitment to your clients. Of course, my pleasure. And thank you, everyone. We will see you on the next one.
The Litigator's Edge podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.